Hey YouTube, Paul TVPaul Douglas here with a quick rundown of some of the things that we know about RIGS Mechanized Combat League so far. The basics of the game are simple. Guerrilla's aim is to fuse together the world of sports and the genre of the first-person shooter. It's a formula that's been touched on before, for example by Unreal Tournament, but RIGS is imagined as a future sport set in the world as we know it, unlike Unreal Tournament, which involves fantasy elements that are a little bit more unrealistic and speculative. Pilots in RIGS are not killed or jibbed, their rigs are destroyed but the pilots eject to safety every time. The aesthetic is heavily influenced by real-world sports such as motor racing, action sports like X Games, and so on. Players will compete in both single-player and multiplayer at fictional arenas in real-world locations. Known locations so far include Rio, Dubai, and Nevada, but the full game will feature more. Progression in the game is unified across single-player and multiplayer, so you are fully able to advance through the game no matter which way you prefer to play, and switching to the other style for a change of pace won't reset your progress or take time away from unlocking more cool stuff. Speaking of cool stuff, the progression system in RIGS is fairly typical of a modern first-person shooter. As you make progress, you'll be able to unlock new customizations for your pilot, such as helmets, visors, outfits, and victory celebrations, which other players will see, for example, when you're the MVP. And don't worry, MVP status in the game is attainable for all playstyles, so even if you hew more towards defensive play rather than going for big scoring attacks, you can still be the MVP. In addition to these customizations, you'll earn credits by playing, which you can use to unlock additional rigs. Rigs function like the heroes in a MOBA or a hero shooter. So they have fixed visuals for all players. There are around 20 plus in the game, falling into several classes, of which about 3 have been shown so far. Those classes are Mirage, Hunter, and Tempest. Mirage rigs are all-rounders with excellent vertical movement. Hunters, on the other hand, aren't particularly adept at vertical movement, but they are fast and tough. And the third class we've been shown to date is the Tempest class, which are akin to scouts and have the ability to hover and fly around the arena. In addition to a class, each rig will have its own weapon loadout and abilities. Weapons too fall into certain categories. Impulse weapons have knockback on them, which is useful for zone denial and defense, while laser weapons have no damage drop at a distance. Abilities we've seen include the knockout ability, which removes overdrive on hit, more on that in a moment, the nuke ability, which drops an explosive payload when your rig is destroyed, similar to the martyrdom perk in Call of Duty, the thief ability, which grants fast movement and radar invisibility, and the vampire ability, which functions like the Red Death signature perk in Destiny, where your damage is repaired when you score a takedown on a rig. Now, remember a moment ago when I mentioned how the knockout ability granted the power to remove an opponent's overdrive on hit? Overdrive is one of the 4 power modes your rig can have in the game. Under normal play, you can choose between 3. Repair mode, where damage is automatically repaired after a period of not taking damage. Impact mode, where weapons hit for more damage. And speed mode, which makes you more speedy. Overdrive activates all 3 modes at once, and it's charged up by taking down opponents and collecting power spheres from the arena. Overdrive is also central to the major game mode we've seen so far, which is called Power Slam. Power Slam is similar to the bombing run mode from Unreal Tournament, except you don't have a physical ball, so you can only score by dunking. Essentially, in Power Slam, you're in 2 teams of 3, and your aim is to score goals by passing through a hoop in the middle of the arena. In order to do so, you have to be in overdrive mode. While that's the only game mode we've seen so far, Guerrilla is promising others, including modes more oriented towards solo play, and regardless of which mode you play, all matches in RIGS are 5 minutes long and each match is divided into 2 equal parts. This short match length is to allow for how intense the game is, and the use of half-times enables designers to balance asymmetrical arenas. Of course, not all arenas in the game are asymmetrical, there will be a mixture, but including this halftime allows for a change of ends, which will make asymmetrical maps fair. Speaking of the game's intensity, that's in part because the game is, of course, entirely played in VR. Guerrilla has implemented at least 2 control modes to help you fine-tune your experience to your liking and comfort. The 2 control methods we know of are one the developer is calling aim, look, and turn. In this method, you use the left stick to move and the right stick is completely disabled. All aiming and turning is handled by moving your head. Within a central dead area, your head movement allows fine aiming. Once you turn beyond this, your rig will turn. The other method removes turning control from your head movement and instead assigns it to the right stick. In this mode, you move your head around freely to aim in any direction, but your rig only turns when you push the right stick in a direction. Developers believe the aim, look and turn will help players who lack thumb skills to be more competitive, but they do acknowledge it takes a little adjusting to get used to. Guerrilla are very aware of the need to create and maintain presence for a comfortable VR experience, and have implemented a number of techniques and effects to help. For example, your pilot's hands can be seen in-game holding the joysticks controlling your rig. They are oriented very similarly to your hands on the DualShock 4, and move slightly along with the tracked movement of your controller. Finally, Guerrilla are aware of the potential for RIGS to take off as an esport, and they're actively building systems into the game to enable these sorts of experiences. So that's RIGS, a future sport where you pilot a range of agile mechs in exotic locations around the world. You'll be able to take your first steps into the Mechanized Combat League at PSVR launch on October 13, which is my birthday! But I'm in California that week, so I'll join the league on October 17. We'll have lots more RIGS content leading up to and following launch. So if you're excited for RIGS, hit that subscribe button, like this video if you did, and consider sharing it with your friends to let them know what RIGS is all about.